This week's installment has audio and print book updates, plus an excerpt from my book, The Very Fine Light. Part 2 celebrates the entrance of the Theotokos into the temple. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Well, the 40-day Nativity fast has already begun, and before you know it, Advent is almost upon us. Great ways to begin this most festive of seasons for celebrating life as we prepare for the birth of Jesus. The audiobook version of my novel, The Very Fine Light, is now available on Amazon.com, and I'm going out on the limb right now in saying that the paperback will be ready for purchase on Amazon just in time for the gift-giving season. Please consider sharing this expanded availability of my book to your family and friends, co-workers and classmates, many who prefer to hold a book when reading or listening when driving. I felt compelled to write this book because it offers an overlooked perusal of life in our modern times, and this story helps portray uplifting prospects for people's being able to grow through the richness gained when people are willing to work together. By spending time together when working towards a common goal and getting involved in more social interactions enlivens hearts and minds through shared experiences and usually provides a friendlier atmosphere that can transport one beyond this artificial world that advertisers badger us and our families with during this pre-holiday season. And now for excerpts from my book, The Very Fine Light. Chapter 1. I've seen times when my friends became my enemies, and my enemies became my friends. Randy Sparks spoke softly to the frightened cat clinging to the branch of an oak tree several stories above the ground. The sound of whining and scratching could be heard from the base of the tree below. I'll bet if that dog hadn't been looking up and barking, the sheriff would never have seen you up here. With that, Randy gently grabbed the soft underbelly of the cat with one hand and worked to extract her claws that were dug into the limb. Randy leaned over the edge of the fiberglass bucket he was standing on. "Hush down there!" The barking suddenly stopped, and the unleashed dog ran off. The cat relaxed her grip on the tree, and Randy pulled her to his chest, slowly lowering the articulated boom connected to his truck almost 20 feet below. "Does she have a collar?" the sheriff shouted up. "Yeah, it says Elvira." "Well, you just rescued the minister's cat." As they descended, Randy looked around. Leaves drifted to the ground on the late autumn morning, and he noted the wisps of condensation from his breath, now that the weather was turning colder, in Canalville, a rustic village located in the lake country of New York State. With the cat secured in the back of the sheriff's car, Randy now used the controls on the side of his truck to lift the gondola back into its cradle atop the truck. "Well, good job, Randy. Great that you happened to come by so early," the sheriff said. "I took the bucket truck home after work last night. Don't tell Mr. Mayor or his underling. They'd have me busted for misuse of government property," Randy said. "Don't worry, I won't. Best to let things fall through the cracks and unnoticed around here, Sheriff. Hey, Randy, talking about forgotten, I ran into the dad of that Army vet you plucked off the bridge last spring. Father said his son's back on his feet now." Randy gave a small smile. "Gotta run." Nico Steves here. I hope you enjoyed today's segments from the audiobook version, as well as if you've signed up for the newsletter, you're going to see the cover from the upcoming print version of The Very Fine Light. So don't forget to put your name on my mailing list at nicosteves.com in order to get even more advanced information on the upcoming audiobook and print version of The Very Fine Light. But let's get on to part 2 for the podcast. It's about a very young Virgin Mary, and this story is rarely broadcast, about her entrance into the temple. Known as the entrance of the Theotokos into the temple, or for the Western Church, it's known as the presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The story begins with the Madonna's parents, Joachim and Anna, who, at an elderly age, had their prayers answered for a child, and their pledge, following that, was to offer her back to the Lord. As Joachim and Anna had made the pledge to the Lord during their angst over their inability to have a child, the time came too quickly when it was incumbent for them to deliver on their promise. Joachim realized this and said to Anna, "Let us take her up to the temple of the Lord, that we may pay the vow we have vowed, lest the Lord depart from us, or perchance the Lord send us someone to warn us that we have been too long in paying our vow, because our offering had not yet been received." Unquote. Anna, dedicated mother that she was, grew concerned, but being true to her faith and her thanks to the Lord, understood what he had asked to be true. But Anna made a request to her husband. "Let us wait for her 3rd year, so that our daughter might not be at a loss to know her father, and also that she might not want to look for us." Joachim conceded and replied, "So let us wait another year." When the Madonna turned 3, her parents now prepared to take her to the temple to honor their word to God. As part of the procession for their gift to the temple, her parents left their home and brought along an escort of young maidens who carried lamps. When they had arrived at the great temple, they changed the Virgin Mary out of her traveling clothes and put on cleaner clothes that were worthy of a queen. The temple was built on a mountain, and so as they arrived at the temple, little Mary was placed on one of the steps at the court of the women. Next, all the others in the procession climbed into the temple of the Lord, with the maidens carrying their lamps and singing psalms. It's hard to imagine the tremendous emotions that Joachim and Anna felt at that moment. But suddenly, at the same time, each of them felt the blessing of God upon them, and they became filled with grace and gladness as they followed through with their awesome pledge. Anna then called the young maidens and had them walk ahead of her with their lamps in hand. In the hymns of St. Andrews of Crete there is a chant, "Thy wise parents, O undefiled one, they brought thee, who art the Holy of Holies, as an offering to the house of the Lord, there to be reared in holiness and made ready to become his mother." Another chant says, "The young girls rejoiced with their lamps in hand as they went forth in reverence before the spiritual lamp as the Virgin Mary was about to enter the Holy of Holies." Next, Anna turned to her daughter, Maiden Mary, and said, "Go, child, to him who gave thee unto me. Be unto him an offering and a sweet-smelling incense. Go into the place that none may enter. Learn its mysteries, and prepare thyself." Meanwhile, the high priest Zacharias rejoiced when he saw little Maiden Mary approach him. He said, quote, "Mary, the Lord of God hath magnified thy name to all generations, and by thee to the very end of time. The Lord will show his redemption to the children of Israel." St. Anna said to Zacharias, "I stand here calling upon God with faith and prayer to receive the fruit of my travail. For I promised that after childbirth I would present my child to him who gave her to me. I'm filled with new strength, for you have understood the things by the Spirit of God, and you have clearly announced what shall come to pass for this virgin. Take her, the undefiled one, into the temple of our Creator." And so from the first moment that the high priest Zechariah, future parent to St. John the Baptist, brought the little 3-year-old Virgin Mary to the 3rd step near the temple altar, stories say that the Lord God, at that moment, sent grace down upon her. And immediately the toddler-aged Virgin Mary went up the steps, one after another, all by herself, and delighted all those present who lived on the temple grounds. They all recognized that the Virgin Mary, as her parents' sacrifice, was now ready for temple life. And so Anna and Joachim's offering at the temple was appropriate according to the custom of the law. It was a sheltering place where she would be brought up now, living with the other maidens in the apartments at the temple. And her parents praised God once they returned home, though they would come to visit her often at the temple, quite frequently for the next 7 years, until one after the other they passed away. At that time the Virgin Mary became an orphan and still stayed with the temple. The Virgin Mary spent her time in a special school for girls there at the temple with the other maidens, and prayed and studied the law of God, as well as learning handiwork. At some point, she determined to live as a virgin for her whole life. And the Madonna was always mindful that God alone is without sin. And as Bishop Ignatius Brian Chinnikov in his exposition commented, the more pure and perfect one is, the more one notices one's own imperfections and considers oneself all the more unworthy. And so the Virgin Mary spent much time in prayer. She was allowed the unheard of privilege of doing so in the temple's Holy of Holies, the supreme inner sanctum where no one but the chief priest was allowed to enter. And for this highest of the appointed priests, he could only enter once per year. But she was given an amazing honor by the chief priest to go there as she pleased. And it almost seemed like she lived inside this sacred area, for she spent so much time there. She wanted to fulfill the commandment of God, quote, "Ye shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy," unquote. Stories suggest that she set prayer times for herself. From early morning until 9 a.m., she remained in prayers. From then until mid-afternoon, she would occupy herself with woolworking. Even in her tender years, she achieved such skill as to surpass old women. And then from late afternoon, she prayed until she retired. So the Virgin Mary's life over the times, it would seem, became fully ordered by divine means rather than human means. Some said she continued in the temple as a dove and was educated there. She blessed God without interruption, even when greeting others. Concerned that she might cease from her praises to the Lord, she even answered praising God in her salutations by saying, "Thanks be to God," or "Glory be to God." And to this day, those words of hers continue when people greet one another. St. George of Nicomedia comments, "Strange is the manner of thy birth, strange is the manner of thy growing. Strange and most marvelous are all things concerning thee, O Bride of God, and they are beyond the telling of mortal man." My new book, The Very Fine Light, is available on Amazon.com. Please feel free to contact me at NikoSteves.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves.com. If you like this episode, and for more, share them with friends, and consider William J. Walsh's book, Heaven's Bright Queen, Apparitions and Shrines of Heaven's Bright Queen. Well, this is Nikos Steves. Thank you. See you next time.